that didn't know what their business strategy was. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to start this, because there has to be, I need a platform that I can get it all out. And I also need to go through all it's just impossible to get everything out in one shot. So this has to be like a slow roll. But the funny thing is, the education of how business works is like part of the problem. I would say that it's probably how business is assembled and how it works and running, and then now new business and like how it should be running. There's a whole bunch of things we can talk about there, like protocol, etc. But strategy is my favorite question to ask. Like, what is your strategy? Now, people dance around that like crazy. And the reason for that is because they've never really thought about it. What people do is they usually just go with the flow, start whatever it is, selling their deliverable or doing whatever it is their business does, and then at the end of the day, just repeat, rinse and repeat. With a strategy, the idea is that you don't break your goal structure, right? Like you have something in your brand that you want to do, and then you find a way to keep doing it. And then that's why you need marketing and advertising, blah, 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 blah. We don't have to go down that. But strategy is probably the best part of the interview process that I don't do. So I basically partnered with a business strategist that would do the interview for an hour for a business owner, which is great because it's not me. So how the team idea started. I started thinking about, how do I convince a business owner that they need to learn something new or that they don't know what they're doing. So by professional interviews over time, you can get one person per corporate area to talk to a small or medium business owner, and then it's not just one idea. It's like you talk to 10 people and they have 10 different, things that you didn't know. So yeah, that's the strategy. Today I'm going to talk about strategy, and it's a very interesting concept because if you Google it, like I just did, it says basically I said, what is your strategy? This is hilarious. It doesn't matter what the links are, the URLs are. It's more what the context is. Your strategy simply is the way in which you plan on matching what you best with the customers you plan to reach. Your strategy should establish unique value proposition compared to your competitors, be executed through operations that provide different and tailored value to your customers. You could just bold all the words there that you have to do with what we're talking about. But I love how it says operations inside there, because I think strategically people believe that the strategy is to sell as much of my shit as possible. Right? Which is not an answer. That's not, it's part of it. Sure. Actually, you know what? That is an answer. But the problem is that's just such a statement that they just basically, one of the problems is saying things to get people to stop asking you questions. That's what people feel like when you start asking questions about their business. They feel like you're asking questions they don't need to answer. So if you come in as a consultant, they go, no, I'll just make something up to shut you up because I already know what I'm doing. That's why it's awesome to have post-mortem feedback with, say, a strategist. And I enjoy that conversation. Why? Because like now there's 3 heads in the game, right? And then 4 heads, 5 heads. But the way that the Google Doc that we share works is we just basically ask the same questions, different questions for different corporate areas. And then you slowly disseminate a really, really, really good business plan, which is not just a model, which is not just the choices of apps, which is not just workflow. It has variables in there that the user defined, and the user would be the business owner. And so what you're doing is you finally get to figure out what their formula is. And that's what the strategy is, right? So the strategy is figuring out what their formula is, but the strategy is inside the formula. It's like a snake eating its own tail. It's wild. But eventually we find out that you could say anything. You could say I just want to be rich. Okay, fine. But that's a goal. What number of rich you want? Is it 5 million, 10 million plus 25 net? I don't care. Just tell me what it is. And then we can put it in the formula. And what happens is if you know what your strategy is, then the formula works both ways, right? Because if it's an equal sign, and then you have a goal on one side, like I always like to mention, and then a bunch of operators in parentheses on the other, well, that's the formula. So you could have plus 25 net 25 million net equals, and then inside the brackets a formula. Here's the crazy part. That's why I like calling this the perfect business. You would think that it's like, well, I can't get that many leads. Are you sure? Or like, I don't think my marketing can be that effective. Are you sure? I don't think that I could scale back my workforce by figuring out the operations better, or prepare my workforce for scale by figuring out my operations better. Are you sure? See, these questions are all in the parentheses. And what I'm trying to get to with this platform, with this forum, is that it is possible, because there's so many tricks in each corporate area that are there for a reason. That technology is built to make it easier for you. Like, first of all, for you, for your team. Also, exploiting things is like amazing, because like with marketing, everybody knows the jokes that Siri's listening to everything, and like so is like Amazon, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, but here's the thing: you have access to a lot of that information as a business owner yourself too, because that's what you can pay for. You can pay for these tricks. Now, I'm not saying that they're all right. I'm just saying that they're there, they're available. And if you have like a lead generation problem, well, we could figure out how to get more leads. Or if you have like a stale part of your, if there's parts of your business that you need to sell more of or whatever, we just figured that out in the strategy. It's just so crazy to me that that's unknown to people, So I basically wrote down, because I go all over the place, so I need to have some sort of, map of how this is going to go. I think 8:00 on Fridays works. Half an hour, whatever. This is Restream. I can have guests. It's, today I decided to do this on my own. So let's say, for example, I'm going to concentrate on the formula, which is actually the service offering in my company. So this right here is where I kind of can break things down, and I can really start to go to places. And that's why one of the things in the parentheses would be the strategy. So let's say you did have the strategy finally, like an equal sign and a goal. Yeah, that's hard. Now, so your goal, obviously, whatever you want. And then here we go, how it's just like math, right? This is fun. So you got like each one of these would be like a corporate area with variables and constants that we could figure out with you. And now you're starting to really get a nice operational model of your business. And it starts to get very time effective. Like you start to see savings in time, and you can start to see revenue change, right? Which are two things that I think that you want, but maybe those things, like, you don't say them at the same time. You just say, more money. And I'm like, well, how about freedom? There's like a different way to describe everything, but that's all part of this, right? And if we go slow, then I think that we could figure out workflows with each industry, app choices in each industry. And the convenience of what the automated method does now is, because we're an agency of agencies that put together formulas for you, is that you have the option of building a partner stack, which is the secret sauce over here, connecting supervisors to your apps. I think I mentioned this already. So that's why I can have such a big mouth on a channel such as theperfectbusiness.tv, is because there's just so much scaling I can do by helping other business, or we can do by helping other businesses scale as well, right? And by focusing on corporate areas, it gets real, and I mean real, because you don't need to, wear all the hats. That's like what it is. You don't need to wear all the hats. That's the hardest thing for a business owner to do, is it to go in and out and to wear this hat for this job and this hat for that job, and thinking that you're going to get the same quality all day, every day by doing that. And usually what you will do is you'll start to gravitate towards what you're good at anyway. Maybe you should have taken a Myers-Briggs test, but you're going to gravitate to what you're good at anyway. And then those other applications that you registered and are all ready to go, you don't really invest a lot of time in them, because you're like, A, I don't like doing it, or B, I'm not very good at it because I'm not seeing any results. That's probably very common for a lot of people out there. Now, let's say, for example, you do find out what your strategy is. And I always like to use finances as an example here, because if you think about how to make money and there's a formula that's working with you, well, then we just figure out how to devise that formula to get whatever it is that you want financially. And it's like, and unfortunately, I'd say it's easier. Money is easier to sell than time. These days, newer business owners, probably the opposite, which is another theme that I like to make sure that I bring out, which is I call it the nature of business. A friend of mine and I came up with this the other day. So the nature of business is actually there's a stack of, if you're did your MBA, there's a nature of business that has like, that's how business works. Like everybody knows that. One of the things I like to go add into that is that I think there's a new nature of business. There's a new everything, right? I don't not want to say the new normal because I hate that. But as far as like new nature of business, one of the things that it probably includes now that a lot of people that wasn't included before is mortality, right? Like people are more recognizing they're going to die. So they don't really they're not looking at work as the same outcome as maybe 20, 30 years ago. They would far more prefer more time than money, right? That's a strategy. And some business owners have that strategy built already. And what's great is that they're not overworking themselves. Maybe they're barely working at all. Maybe that means they're not making as much as they could in their business, but maybe they're only working 10% of the time that they used to be. And if that's the case, so if you let's do math. Let's say we can make it so that you do a 25% change in your net at the end of the year. So say it was 100 last year, now it's 25, but you only work 10% of the time of 100 compared to the last year. So that math right there, that exists these days, period. So that means that people are more willing to take that cut, knowing that they don't have to do anything as hard, or they can only focus on what they want to. And that's like how you work it out. Because that extra 25% inside the formula that they had, that we're just using data from before, that's the investment that they take to cut 90% of their labor away. Like it works out that easy. So I'm hoping that some people, if they were listening to this, would be like, oh, that's how it works. I'm like, yeah, time and money are variables inside that formula, right? And all you got to do, you can trade off. You can buy one with the other. And that's where, like, if I was thinking that I could squeeze it even harder, so by designing the operational workflow so that it's so tight, if I was to squeeze that even harder, maybe we can work it out to have 200% net, you know what I mean? 200% finances, and then 5% time of your investment as a business owner. Because if you could do it one way, why wouldn't you be able to continue to do it so that it gets better and better and better? See where I'm going with this? That's to me the perfect business. And it doesn't have to do with just, like a lot of minimization and optimization and efficiency. Kill me, those hashtags, those like buzzwords. That's why I like the math side of things, because I think when people say efficiency, it's just a scapegoat because they don't know anything formulaically. They can't prove it with math. I can, or we can, right? So let's go a little bit further. I basically tell myself I want to do this once a week, and I want to talk about an article that I want everybody to read, and then like post it on Twitter. Oh God, social media. There's so much. This is already hard to do. You notice I have a little logo in the corner there that inside Restream here, the perfect business. My buddy Ron did that, and it's like that is where this is going. I'm trying to make it concise so that it's easy, one thing to do once a week or twice a week, and then have it just do everything else. I've talked about that before, but it's hard. I feel for content generators out there. I have the content, but how do you post it all at the same time and disseminate it? And there's every platform, and there's so many things to say on different platforms. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. So I feel for everybody that's trying to story brand right now, because I have the content, but how do you get it all out there? And it's like all I'm doing now is feels like I'm writing a script all day, every day. And then eventually I'm like, it's Friday. I got to go read the script. So the article that I printed out, and I was going to talk about this with my buddy Mike, is about the rise of decision intelligence. Okay. And this is AI that optimizes decision making. So the reason this is, I don't need you to read this right now. Read it. I'm not going to read it on. That'd be stupid to read it on a live video podcast. But Anyway, decision intelligence is where I want to go right now. Because artificial intelligence, I hate AI when people go, because I'm looking at it from the practical standpoint, right? Like AI to people is like sentience and the future and like robots, etc. But let's go one step back, and it's this decision intelligence. So decision making is the where you can change the speed. Human beings in a business, when they exchange information with each other, if it takes time to respond or it takes time to deliver that information, you have a operational lag. Okay? And that's why, like, I'll always attack email, is because that operational lag is it's such a variable. It's not the newest best form of communication, that's for sure. And it's also like rogue, because you don't know if the person's going to reply at the same time as the other person, and then so you can't really metric the operational fluency, which is a phrase that I came up with myself. Operational fluency is like instantaneous information transfer between like different things, so that you don't have to ask for the data, it's right there. That kind of stuff is like, and if it's fluent, then you don't have these lags, these stops where we're waiting for information from a human being. It happens so often. And check this out. Another good example is phoning someone for information. Say, for example, if there's someone on your team and you need to get some info that's inside their brain, and they haven't put it on in a cloud app in any way whatsoever, and they don't answer the phone. Well, now you're standing there and you're waiting for that information, and you can't get it. You can't get it out of the other person's head because they didn't answer the phone, so it goes to voicemail. So you call again. What do you do next? Maybe text them. Maybe send an email. Whatever you're doing, you're waiting. That operational lag is why you should start to think of that as like a subtraction from the amount of time you have in the day. Okay? Because you had an operational lag of, say, 22 minutes, or let's say even 15 minutes to get back to that person, or that person getting back to you with the information that's in their head. Well, that time has been extracted from the day. So when you calculate how much bandwidth you have in the day, you got to look at that as waste. That time is wasted, okay? And if the time is wasted and it's happened, and don't discount it when you're working out your metrics at the end of the day, which you should be, because time is money. And that's easy, right? I don't have to prove that. Everybody knows that. But see, you don't calculate the wasted time. And so your operational fluency has lag. And that lag costs you money and lost revenue. And then what happens is, you say, for example, you're scaling your business. Say you have account managers and you're scaling your business, and the account managers they can only handle so many clients or so many connections a day or so many whatever. There could be many different types of businesses I can talk about, but account management is a pretty universal, job, a role, or responsibility, whatever you want to call it. So those account people have bandwidth. They can only do so much. They can only have so many conversations a day, and you got to calculate it like, how long is a conversation on average? They're not all an hour. They're not 10 minutes. But if you have information through an app, then you can actually know real time your bandwidth for your team of account managers, because because if you got it all tight, their information transfer is instantaneous with each other, because they don't have to ask for information that's already inside some sort of database, etc. Maybe there's other points of lag, but that's fine. At least we're figuring out where the lags are with the software. But if you think of a business that scales when they get busy and they haven't calculated the operational lag, they could be adding human beings into the system unnecessarily, because they haven't tightened up the ops. So what happens is, when you add another person, you're just adding bandwidth, and you think that bandwidth means whatever they can do in one day that I pay them for, etc., whether it's remote or whether it's anything. And so see where this starts to break down. So if you didn't tighten that up, maybe you got 5 extra people that are just all part of this broken system. And then once you tighten up anyway, I could go on and on and on. That's operational fluency to me, okay? That's something that I think everybody should think about. Everybody. Because it saves so much money. My God. And you could use that money for something else, like marketing. And if you don't want to do the marketing, hire someone else to do it. Like, and it's not unnecessary. And I could go to an Instagram business right now, right? I can go to a business that's on Instagram, because Instagram is kind of the platform for a lot of businesses, maybe connected to, some sort of e-commerce gateway or Shopify or whatever. But it's like, if there are people on Instagram, they're using Instagram as like the shopping mall of their business, right? It's like all right there. You can connect through it, etc. But if your business can't do that, well, then you don't, like, how do you get your business somewhere else? And it's not my forte. I'm not good at it. That's why you got to you got to hire an agency that does modern marketing for you. But these broken communications are just all over the place. I can go off on operations all day. I can go off on marketing all day. I can go off on strategy all day, but I'll try to keep it within, one a day. I wrote down, and this is also really beneficial to the world, for correcting how it works for both. Okay, for three different parties, for the team, actually more, but let's try to work this out here. For the owner of the business communicating with the team, for the team inside communicating with the team, and for businesses communicating with other businesses. If we can figure out how to make everything start to get more fluent, operationally fluent, all that benefits, all of it. Business to business, that's a crazy one, because unfortunately businesses are like their own bubble, right? And so you put a force field around your business, and you're inside that bubble, and then you have another business over here, and you put a force field around that business, and they're in that bubble. Both of them will have their own protocols. They'll have their own rules and their own whatever. And if they try to communicate the way they think that you're supposed to communicate, is when they start using this word professional, right? Like, that's why people attack the idea that, you should respond to an email in an hour. I'm like, but see, that's not our business's protocol. That's your business's protocol. And there's no professional business protocol police. Like, it doesn't exist. So when this business to business are communicating, they're operationally a mess, communication wise, because they're trying to project their professionalism on the other one, and back and forth and back and forth. And it's like, there's no guide to that. I think it's just guilt. Professional guilt. Like, if you don't respond fast enough, you're unprofessional. And if you don't so the operational speed of your business is required to be check your email every 1 second. Every 1 second, everybody. Just keep checking it nonstop, because if you don't, you're unprofessional. Now, right, the reason why I find it very interesting talking about that is because I said this the other day. I said, like, professional freedom. Do you know what? Okay. Professional freedom is awesome, because I feel like that is, and I'm going to talk about more, but I'm going to get brevity. This is like a good opener to see, because I'll watch this and listen to it afterwards, and I'll figure out where should I go with what I was talking about. That's the whole idea. It's like I get it all out, and then I look at it, and then I see, what should I target? What is, highlight, what this, So professional freedom, that's like when you're available and when you're not. And how does the world know when you're not professionally? I find that is like, we have to rethink that concept with remote work. And Alyssa and I always joke about off work travel and on work travel, because I don't like the word vacation, because I feel like that means something's owed to you. Well, I mean, we built the business, so we go off work, off work travel. But see, this freedom is when, I can give a perfect example. The out of office in your email. Oh, what a load of shit. If I get one more, and it's like, I don't use email the same way, right? And I mean, I can talk about that. I'll totally tell everybody here how email works through bots and through apps and whatever, through, here, this channel, but so much to talk about. But this idea of an out of office is hilarious because here's a good one. Does anybody say, "Sorry, I'm not available right now. I will have intermittent access to email." First, I always like to say, I'm like, where are you going that there isn't any connection to the internet at all? Like, you can go somewhere, I'm sure, or just don't take your phone. But what you're doing is you're just professionally lying because there is no way that there's no rule, but you've been told that inaccessibility 24/7 is unprofessional. Am I getting to anybody right there? Because that's what it says to me. But if all operations have changed, say for example, we don't focus on email as much as we used to, we start using new push technologies and convenient operational business to business tactics between apps. Now you wouldn't need an out of office per se, right? It'd be like a new do not disturb. Now, because you're not looking at it from the hourly outcome, you're not looking at it from hourly, you're looking at it from outcomes. That's when things start to change. Like if you look at Slack is like, it has a D&D for a reason, or when you can turn it off, because you can really hone in on, what channels and who, what notifications, just like your goddamn phone, right? And it's so funny because those little tiny, supposedly professional things really affect the way someone feels when they're working in the business, because you have to lie, first of all, just to get some time off, which is insane for me. And then it's also that everybody does it. So everybody doing it basically causes this 9 to 5 problem, even though people don't want a 9 to 5 problem, right? And I don't know how I got to think about this a little bit more, because now I just tapped into some pretty cool ideas. But that whole professional freedom is like, new businesses know the standards, but if they're interacting with a business that, okay, could be new but has traditional values, then there's a breakdown. And that it's not unprofessional. It's just that everybody needs to be updated. The consciousness of communication needs to be updated because it's broken, right? So there you go. Professional freedom. Yeah, you can say that one, scream that one from the rooftops. What else did I say? Oh yeah, the new nature of business. I'm going to talk about that a lot. Operational fluency. That's an awesome one. I love that, because the whole idea of figuring out how things can talk faster and better is like, obviously you could save money instantaneously. I just got to say something about that for a second. It's the people that don't want to share what they're doing because they feel like that's an invasion of their professional privacy, even though they're on a team, is like insane. It's insane. All you're doing is you're penalizing the timelines and bandwidth of other people. That's what you are. Or guess who you are? You're a bandwidth vampire. Ooh, I wonder if anybody out there knows who I'm talking about, but you probably have a few of them. A bandwidth vampire, to me, I just like saying it. That's someone who will not modernize anything, will not adapt, adopt, change, evolve at all in a team-based exercise, or a team project-based exercises, tasks, finishing things, whatever. And then because they have their own way of doing things, that it goes against a lot of other things, they're like bandwidth vampires. They're sucking the bandwidth out of the team or whatever. And usually it's the owner. I mean, like, I've caught myself doing it sometimes, but what it is it's very easy. You spin up other people's bandwidth for yourself. That's it. Like, you're the king, you're the emperor, you're the master, and everybody else needs to stop what they're doing and answer you. That bandwidth vampire idea is it's an epidemic in a lot of business, especially when, like, where I can say that I've done it is because I have a Slack channel and I'm working with a lot of agencies. We call them agents, and I'm not trying to extract information just for me, but I try to stimulate the conversation a little bit. And it's like those people may think that that's just like sending an email to someone, hey, are you done? And that's why I had to move towards a monday.com structure so that I can have people log in and change whether the task is done or not and the completion date. Because that's technically all you need to know, right? So that's why, but Slack is what it was hard to pick between either to what does one do and the other. Now there's a protocol inside the automated method for agent to agent communication so that the Monday is used properly and Slack is used properly. But Jason was a bandwidth vampire there for sure. Now, if you know what I'm talking about and that gets you, that isn't where, if you're a bandwidth vampire, you're changing how your team feels, and they all are now going to identify you as that. They're gonna be like, "Oh, I know exactly who that is," and it's a needed to step beyond to get to the perfect business. That's a necessary step. You have to figure out who the bandwidth vampires are. You have to establish these new protocols for internal team communication and for business to business communication. Hopefully that becomes the same soon one day. And then, you basically tighten up your operational fluency by that's what we do over here, figure that out for you. And then you can start to exhibit that better professional freedom idea, which means that not everybody wants to work all the time. And maybe there are ways to figure that out for certain people, different than other people. It's so much transparency wins, man. Honesty and transparency has always won, but I think the new nature of business, another thing to include there is that transparency and honesty business to business, or from the consumer to the inside of the business. So because it works for the culture. A lot of big enterprise businesses, they use that as a cultural thing. They tell you what they're doing on the inside. They probably have a newsletter or a podcast. They advertise on their social media how happy all their staff are and all that stuff. But that's not a wrong thing. But it makes someone like me who may not be on the inside of that enterprise think, wow, they really got it together. They're having a real good time doing things. And it's not so like closed. That whole closed business culture is, I think, the old nature of business. Okay? And it's like these things all together are why I'm opening this up and calling it the perfect business, because I think it's going to do something. I think it is. Because there's these little tiny details. If a few things change here and there, it's going to make everybody's business better. Everybody's business. All of them. And their internal team is going to be like so much happier. It's going to be ridiculous, right? They're not going to have this fear of like opening their inbox on like Monday at 9 a.m. They're like, I can't wait. Because that's like, I'm sure a lot of people think that way, because it's like, if you didn't respond to the email over the weekend, like some of the other people, then you're like, they've been waiting for you. They've been waiting for an answer. And they were like, I didn't know you were working Sunday. You were working Sunday? I thought you were working Sunday. I'm like, no, I wasn't working Sunday, but why were you working Sunday? Anyway, I'm going to end it